When? Welcome, everybody. We're so glad to have this meeting this morning because for a little while it looked like we might not have one with the speaker. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for those of you who are on the internet for joining us. Thanks to Sharon and Mac for sharing this wonderful space at Bali Rica for us. Lisa Virtue is going to give us the opening meditation. While I calm down.
Thank you, Ruthie. So Ruthie requested today, because tomorrow is Thanksgiving in the United States, to do a gratitude meditation, which we've done one before, but I'll do a different one. So let's just begin, as always, by closing our eyes and taking 3 deep, long, clearing breaths. Just release out the tensions of getting here, anything that had been preoccupying you, and bringing your focus and attention to arriving on your cushion. Gratitude is a quality of our focus. It's a choice to see the beautiful, to see the bountiful. And it's not situation dependent. No matter what's going on, we can choose to find something to be grateful for. And in the darkest times, it is perhaps the most necessary. And there's a saying, what you focus on expands. Or to put another way, where attention goes, energy flows, and results show. So as we put our attention to the positive things that we're appreciating, the energy flows into that, and the results usually are that we're happier. And the more we're spending our time with our focus filled with that type of energy, the more the outside world starts to meet us in that vibration, that state. So things that you may not have any control over physically somehow start to align, simply because you're choosing an attitude of gratitude. So let's begin with choosing our gratitudes that might naturally come for Thanksgiving for our loved ones. And we're just going to sit with a sense of appreciation as I'll list some things, and whatever comes up to you occurs naturally. Just allow that to move through your awareness with a sense of loving heart. So we're grateful for all those that we love, our family. Moving out of our inner circle to our expanded circle of friends. And then, before we move further out to other people, something closer to us is all those things. Frog phone calls, that's good. All those things that we have wished for or prayed for or worked hard for in the past that have come to pass, that have manifested for us. So many things in our lives that we aspired to, and we can be grateful that they actually occurred for us. It's easy to forget them once they've shown up and we move on to something else. but you could sit for days reflecting on all those things that you could be grateful for. We can move into gratitude for where we live, the community that we live in, the home that we live in, the fact that we have shelter. You could be grateful that you have walls or that you don't have walls. It's about your perspective. Grateful for food to eat. And all of those people involved in the process of bringing that to the grocery store. Those who made the journey with the food. Those who found the seeds and grew the food. We can be grateful for our bodies able to digest. And of course, grateful simply for our breath. That one element that we only have a few minutes that we could live without. And this is always with us. So in any moment, with each inhale, we can find gratitude for life. So allow yourselves to ponder that through this day and beyond. And find a moment here or there. You don't have to sit for 20 minutes on a cushion to find gratitude. You can pepper through your day. Namaste.
Thank you, Lisa. For those of you who are watching this online, this has been a kind of off morning, and we're going to be a little shorter than usual because I was very late getting here. And I couldn't reach anybody by phone. Everybody had their phones off, or if they tried calling me and I turned mine off. So anyway, mindfulness. The 5 hindrances, what they are, and how we can overcome them. This is the second talk on this topic. Jeff gave the first one last week. And so I will do a little bit of review before we get to the specific topic today, which is the category of hindrance titled generally. I'm so shot I can't remember what I'm talking about. Ill will and aversion. I just have to get comfortable a little bit. Ill will and aversion. But before we go to that specifically, a few contextual remarks. In the 4th Noble Truth, which is the Eightfold Path, the 7th step is mindfulness. And it is one of 3 steps combined together that form the meditation section of the Eightfold Path, which is a spiritual path to enlightenment. It's very closely connected to the 2nd step of intention. And as we talk, you'll see that connection. Everything is connected. We know that. Everything is connected. So any topic can be applied to any other topic and have some validity, something to say about it. But the 2nd step, which is intent, is really important here. The intentions that the Buddha gave us as essential One of them is goodwill. Goodwill. So we're talking now about ill will. We're taking the opposite view. And this leads to some interesting kind of byways here. One of which is that when the Buddha gave his teaching, the Satipatthana Sutra, which is we call it in English, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, he starts the 4th foundation with the hindrances. This is the main foundation for all the dharmas. So why, with all the Dharma teachings, would his first and critical first teaching be on the hindrances? It would seem that it might be the other way around, because we talk all the time about positive things. This sounds like a negative. But the Buddha believed that unless you overcame the 5 hindrances, you would not be able to succeed in cultivating all the mindfulness trainings that are then offered to you afterwards. In other words, if you understand the 5 hindrances and you work with them, you actually can lose them. You can overcome them. And when you do, it opens up a tremendous amount of space for the mindfulness practice that you want to follow to cultivate. All the steps. So what are the 5 hindrances? The first one that Jeff talked about is sensory satisfaction and inappropriate sensory pleasure seeking, concentration. The second, as I say, is ill will, and along with the ill will, we have aversion. I told you I'm a little still out of breath. The third is...
I didn't bring my list.
Well, we don't need to go there anyway today.
Doubt is the 5th.
Doubt. Oh, sloth and torpor. Sloth and torpor is the 3rd, and restlessness is the 4th.
There you go.
Okay, I'm going to connect here after a while. I love sloth and torpor. I looked that up, by the way. I looked that up, and torpor is a metabolic factor in hibernation. It's when your system just goes into... Shuts down. Okay, so that's what torpor is. We like torpor and we like sully. Wow. Things are sullied. I like that word too. Anyway, ill will. Anybody here ever experienced any ill will towards anything? Yeah. All of these hindrances have been living experiences for us. This is nothing out there. This is nothing esoteric or strictly conceptual. This is real life. This is where the rubber hits the road. So what are some of the manifestations of ill will? Anger is a big one. The little ones are things like irritation, frustration, just general, whatever. All the things that we feel. And the thing here that we need to keep in mind, that everything that we touch in the Dharma is on a spectrum. Beginning with the first noble truth, the foundational first teaching, where the word dukkha for suffering goes from having a hangnail that's irritating you all the way up to the most horrible forms of suffering, such as crucifixion. Our job, and the reason that the Dharma is often referred to as the middle way, is to find the balance somewhere between the extremes. And when you think that it's not much, for example, to just be irritated, have an off day, you realize that this is the minor, but it can escalate unless treated. It can go from being irritated to being angry, to being in a rage, to causing wars, murder, all kinds of terrible things. They all have the same root, which is ill will. Now, how do we deal with that? Everybody here knows what, because I talk about it all the time. We know what the antidote is to it, which is loving kindness, goodwill. Every morning when we say good morning or good afternoon or good evening, when we say welcome, when we part and we say farewell, we are expressing loving kindness or goodwill. And you can deliberately, Lisa just touched on it, where you place your mind is the direction of your life. So if you are experiencing any of these symptoms, such as irritability or frustration or sloth and torpor or any of them, you can stop. It's why we have cushions. It's why we begin our talks with meditation. Because the two things that mindfulness require, one is its own definition, awareness. The other is to calm down. I'm a little excited this morning from being, running late. My mind's a little frazzled. But as I sit here, it'll settle down. Now, mindfulness is such a big topic. Let's face it, every one of us is on that spectrum of mindfulness just by virtue of being conscious. The fact that humans or sentient beings have consciousness means that whether they know it or not, they are somewhere in the range of being mindful. It can be very, very low. You can be down at the bottom in terms of awareness and simply be aware of the most basic things, the need to eat, sleep, etc. But as you become more mindful, you move up on that scale. And you will notice that what we're really talking about is mindfulness meditation today. That meditation that starts in your cushion, starts in your mind, it starts with your awareness, then moves up and away, it ripples outwards. And every time you can chuck a hindrance, you have opened up, just with the greatest of ease, a huge space for all kinds of mindfulness good things to come in. We did our first mindfulness talks on John Kabat-Zinn's book, Full Catastrophe Living. This was looking at mindfulness from a very specific point of view. And that point of view is stress reduction, anxiety, panic, just getting through bad times. That's one way of looking at it. The way we are looking at it today, as the hindrance is looking at it from a very specific point of view, which is the point of view of awareness of what they are, which I just forgot for a minute. There you go. Anyhow, but on the one we're on. So, let's say you're really irritated. Do you know when you're irritated? The Buddha has laid out in the fourth foundation, which is the Dhammas, this being the first step. If you are going to deal with this, you first have to know you have the hindrance. So step number one, when a hindrance arises, I am aware of that hindrance. Do we really recognize when we're scratchy, irritated, angry? I know people, and I'm sure you do too, that are so much this way that it's just who they are. It's just natural to them. They're not even aware that they're saying sarcastic or mean things. They're not aware that they're gossiping, and that gossip could hurt somebody. They're not aware of all kinds of things that have become normalized for them. So number one, always in mindfulness, is awareness. Okay? I know I'm irritated. Right now, I know I'm agitated. So the second thing is really interesting. The second thing is to be aware of when you aren't irritated or agitated. What does freedom from a hindrance feel like? What does it feel like to not be angry when someone angers you? When you have some kind of real problem that arises and you have aversion, which we'll talk about in a moment, what does it feel like to release it? And now I'm going to take a back step and say, well, I'm going to talk about the difference between ill will and aversion, because these two are always lumped together and there really is a subtle difference. Ill will is always bad. Always. Anytime you feel ill will, you need to stop and take stock. Aversion, however, is like pain. It can be a warning sign. Whenever we are on the receiving end of any kind of stimulus, anything, and we're on that all time, every day, we have only one of three responses or reactions: attraction, aversion, or indifference. Nothing else. Attraction, we like it. Aversion, we don't like it. Indifference, we could care less. Those are your only three choices. How much of your life is spent with not liking things? A lot of aversion. And what do you do about it? But the aversion is a warning signal. The ill will is a disease. This is the way I think of it. All right? So, I can say, all right, let's say you have, this is an example. Let's say you have an allergy to peanuts. And you say, oh, God, I hate peanuts. Don't bring them anywhere near me. You're expressing an aversion. But if you do what the Buddha suggests and you sit down and think about it, you realize it's not peanuts that you have an aversion to. It's what they do to you. It's the fact that they cause you to break out in hives or not breathe or whatever peanut allergies do. It's important to differentiate the subject and the object when it comes to things like aversion and ill will. And we do that, again, by being aware and taking a little bit of time. Everybody with me on that one? So, first of all, awareness that we have the hindrance. Second, what is it like if we get rid of the hindrance? What does it feel like when you feel really good and you're not irritated? Sometimes I get irritated because somebody interferes with my feeling good. Don't irritate me when I feel good. I mean, we all express irritation. The third is, what are the causes and conditions that have brought about this ill will or aversion? What caused it? This is a big one. They all have causes. Nothing arises without conditions that are favorable for it to arise. In Buddhism, this is called conditionality. So if you are irritated, you may find that the person next to you isn't irritated by that same thing. There's a reason for your irritation. So when your irritation arises, or your anger, or whatever it is, you need to analyze that. And part of analyzing it is what we call being non-judgmental. We sit with it and we say, I am angry. And then we don't talk to ourselves about it. We don't make this a big self-analysis that obscures the truth. Because if we present the problem to ourselves and we sit in meditation, the answers you're looking for will often arise. And if they don't arise immediately, you just let them sit there. And then you can go into more detailed analysis later. So the third step, seek the causes and conditions that brought about this problem for you. The fourth step is, what do you do when this problem arises? What are your actions?
What's your strategy?
What's your strategy? How are you going to deal with this? You may have to get a divorce. Sorry. But first of all, you've got to give it a whole lot of thought, because you may be carrying the reason with you instead of the other person. So we try to jettison blame. The minute you feel blame coming on, you need, again, to back up. So you get all these causes, and you work out what you do about it. The fifth and final step is to take the time with your meditation to prevent this from happening to you again, to free yourself from this. This is doable, actually. Anybody here have something that they've done that with? I don't know.
We almost all of us go visit the doctor regularly as a preventative measure. Not that we're necessarily having a problem, but regular medical things. I do that. That's prevention for me.
Right.
And so I do that for my physical health.
Well, we can seek the help now with therapists. I don't think in the Buddha's day they probably had too many, but he certainly did The monks did all the investigation. Now, the Buddha gives us some visuals about, which we did last week, but I'm going to do them again because they're really pretty powerful. You can help me if I lose my train of thought here. The Buddha says, look at the hindrances as if you were looking into a pail or a lake of clear water. Your consciousness has no obstacle. It's liberated from the hindrances. When the sensory problems arise, it's as if you poured dye in the water. You lose your clarity of thought. You don't see things as they are. You often lose yourself. Okay? The second one, ill will, it is as if the water boiled. It goes from warm to warmer to hot to hotter to scalding. And it boils. And we talk in those terms. Oh, I was just, when we talk about rage, we talk about boiling. The third one, our sloth and torpor, is as if you looked in the pond and you really couldn't see anything because it's covered with algae. It's just got green goo all over it. The regular sloth that we have has that on his coat. He's got all kinds of moss growing on his coat, which is kind of maybe where the idea of slothful came in. I don't know. The fourth, restlessness, is as if a wind came up and blew the water into so many little waves that you no longer can see yourself. And the fifth is as if, the fifth being
mud.
Doubt, is as if you are caught in mud. You can't see anything because it's, some people say quicksand or mud, completely muddied. So think of it when you next have an arising of the hindrance of ill will, and you check the cause. You might have this visualization, because they're pretty powerful ways of seeing something that otherwise is just verbal. As for the liberation, that's your first part. The liberation, and this I asked Jeff to bring. You did bring the thing to say, right?
I
Got
brought
it in your head because for some reason I can't remember it. He says that the first of the hindrances is as if you had taken a loan from a bank. Well, all of the hindrances, not just the first. This is an illustration. And it's surprisingly modern.
Yeah,
It's very, very
I
modern.
was surprised when I saw this. It was just like
It's like
a modern
today.
thing, and it was taught by the Buddha.
It's as if you took a big loan from the bank and you worked and you worked and you worked and you paid it off. And at the moment of paying off, you would experience
Peace and full of joy.
peace and joy. Okay, getting rid of the hindrances is a relief. You're not taking something on. You're getting rid of something. And now this is gone. You've paid that debt. The second one, ill will, I've forgotten what it is. You remember, I'm losing my train of thought. But they go through one. Let's assume that you have been imprisoned
Here's one.
I think that's one.
It
of
is
them.
one.
Is that number 2? It's as if you have been arrested and thrown into prison. And now you are released. The prison opens up and you walk out a free man. And you will be filled with
Peace and full of joy.
Okay. We'll just do those two because
No, ill. Disease.
Ill will.
Feel sick.
Oh, yeah,
Is it
mine, the second one, is as if you were sick, really, really sick, and you got well. And suddenly, from not being able to eat or sleep or anything, you sat up and you felt good. That's what
Peace and full of joy.
it's the relief. Okay. The fourth is as if you were a slave
There it is.
and you had no control over your life. You were mastered. And then you were freed. You no longer were a slave. And you would be filled with
Peace and full of joy.
And the last one is as if you were a wealthy person who had to protect a whole lot of money and carry it. And this happened in those days, on the Silk Road one. You had to carry it across a long trek through dangerous territory. And you made it to the other side and you still had your money and you would be filled with
Peace and full of joy.
There you go. So to get rid of the hindrances is to feel as the freedom of being free from debt, free from disease, free from prison, free from enslavement, free from danger. Every time you jettison a hindrance, you are on the path of liberation. And right from the get-go, we're told that the Eightfold Path is the path to enlightenment. And enlightenment is liberation from suffering and the establishment of
Peace and full of joy.
Yay! There we go. So that's how important this is. That's how important it is. I really would like to just end with one thing. We didn't cover at the beginning. When we did the first set of talks on mindfulness, we had a definition. And that definition was awareness in the present moment with intention. Remember, with intention. Non-judgmentally. Now, we've spoken a number of times about the fact that we have to have good judgment and at the same time be non-judgmental. The reason you don't want to let judgment come in, to start telling yourself a story, to embroidering your meditation and your nowness, is because you close off the space. Because once that space opens, the Buddha says, it will begin to show you the luminosity of your own true nature, which is Buddha nature. You have allowed the light, the luminosity of who you really are. Because you're not really an angry, mean, shallow person. We all have Buddha nature. And what we do every time we don't give in to a hindrance, it loses its power, because hindrances are built on habit. We do something without awareness, and then we do it again because we did it once. We did it one time, and so now it's easier to do it the second time, the third time, the fourth time, until it is part of our whole repertoire of behaviors. What we're saying here is stop. Recognize that I'm not making myself or anybody else very happy by being obsessed with pleasure that is not going to last, or by hatred, or by any of the other hindrances. The antidote in this context, because this mindfulness extends to many teachings throughout all of it. But this one is based specifically on this foundation of mindfulness. Recognize it. Be aware of it. Be aware of what it feels like to be free, instead of focusing on where you're trapped. Stop and think, what would it feel like if I didn't feel this way anymore? I mean, how difficult is it going to be? It could be very difficult. How much of misery do I really want to take before I do something about it? And then we come up with a real check on the causes and conditions that brought it about. And then we come up with a strategy of correction. And then we come up with a strategy for seeing that we don't have to do that anymore. It's gone. So thank you very much. I apologize for being a little off today.
You got it.
But I think we covered the main points, and I'd like to open it up for some comments if anybody has any to make. Do we all realize that this is universal? We're not talking angels singing here or anything. We're talking about how you feel when you're stuck in traffic, or you're in quarantine and you're really tired of looking at all the people in your house. This is real life stuff. This is where mindfulness pays off. Mindfulness pays off very noticeably as stress reduction. That has now been really confirmed and tuned. It works. This is for general living. Okay? Where on the spectrum are you? How willing are you to take on yourself? Because we all make mistakes. And we all have our good qualities and our bad. And so now, somebody speak up for me. Take over and take a look, because I can't see if anybody wants to.
I'll repeat what you say so that our friends.
Okay.
Online.
So there's something I do. I try to do twice a year, more if I can, but lately it's only been once a year, and that's a vision quest. 4 days, no food, no water, alone in the forest, alone in the forest. Nobody else is around, and you have basically a space that is smaller, maybe a third the size of the pavilion, to which you have your sleeping, and you have your altar, and that's it. You go in and you sit there for 4 days and you consider. And obviously by the first day, you can handle the first day, no food, no water. But by the time you get to the second day, it's starting to get your attention, especially if it's really hot. By the third day, you're the first time you do it, it's really got your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And by the fourth day, it's got your attention, but at least you know you're exiting that day.
Mm-hmm.
Unless somebody says, okay, do another day, and now you're in there for 5 days. And what it helps to do is it helps to put into perspective what is important. And what you find is what the mind will do when you are deprived of things that you take for granted, such as water, food, drink, conversation, somebody else, shade. And what the mind does with that, and the stories that it comes up with, and then the way that you approach it. And it's very much what you're talking about. All of these 5 different things, they show up regularly. You can be sloth-like. You can go into deep meditation, but that's not going to work so well because you've still got to move around and you still have to be alert to what's going on. It's an incredible experience. Why I do it so often, it's an incredible experience because it helps to put everything else into perspective. So now when I come to the cushion and I sit on the cushion, I have a set of tools from doing this so many times. I have a set of tools that support me on the cushion where I'm like, bring on the cushion, let's do this. This is one of the things that I found was the most endearing out of it. Most of it was we tend to, as a people, we tend to focus on what problems are. Or we tend to exclude them completely and just focus on the exalted conclusion. This encourages you to do both. You recognize whatever is presenting at this particular time, whatever is encouraging you to be less than your more magnificent self is worth of observation.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Mark has been talking about the value of Vision Quest that he does regularly a couple times a year for practicing these principles Ruthie was talking about today.
Right in line with that is that if you go into a meditation like a retreat or something, you can find out that you can hit all 5 of the hindrances in a very short period of time. You sit, let's say you're at a 2-hour meditation class, and then you're going to get a break. And you look over, and wow, there's somebody pretty attractive you've never seen before. And now, instead of all your virtue, you're thinking, wonder who that is. You begin to weave some fantasies. It's called retreat passion. And you get into these kind of long things and nobody's talking, but you're totally into that pleasurable thing. Inappropriately, because you're not there for that. And then you can turn around and the guy next to you keeps going and you start to become quite irritated. All right? You begin to have ill will for this person and you don't even know him. You're not, instead of being annoyed by the sound, you're now attaching that to the person. And you've developed an aversion. Then you go along after about an hour, you're starting to get sleepy. And you're having trouble keeping your focus and your concentration. So then, after that, and you jerk yourself awake, you start to get restless. How much longer are we going to be sitting here before it's time to eat? You get restless, okay? So now you've gone through all of these. You've gone through, what's the 5th hindrance? Doubt. Oh, now you say, I'm no good at this. Now, this is one of the reasons you really stick to non-judgment, mental stuff. The voice is going. That you're telling yourself fake stories. You're fake newsing yourself. Okay, if you want to use that awful term. Anyway, if you just leave it alone, don't be judgmental about this. You can say, okay, I need to go home. I'm not getting anywhere in this retreat. I don't really like it. I've got an aversion to it. I just keep trying and I'm no good, etc. So you go through all. So in the matter of 2 hours, you've gone through all 5 of them.
or
And you
the
stick
people.
with what he's talking about, though, and it begins to push its way past you, doesn't it?
Hmm. Or you doubt the people who are leading the retreat.
Oh, you
You know, it doesn't have to
you
be
can
just
doubt.
self-doubt.
You
It
can,
can be,
you can. These can
you know,
take
you're just
any
like,
form.
this is a lame retreat.
Yeah,
What am I doing here?
What am I
This
doing
could
here?
be this could be better, and that's judgment and leads you to doubt.
Yeah.
So
So if you just are not, I'm giving it to you.
okay, got it.
Oh, do you want it? Because I can't see it. And
Yeah.
I hope
And
somebody
anyone
has
else
something to say.
comment about? Yeah, John.
Yeah, you just touched on a thing when I find myself in a disagreement with somebody or over a thing. I can identify. I can realize that, of course, because you feel it.
Speak up, John.
I can realize that I'm aware of it. I know what caused it, and I know that I want to resolve it. But the stumbling block almost always is to get over the pride of thinking, no, I'm sticking to my guns because I'm right,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because it was in writing or because there was a prior agreement or something, and that hangs me up for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get over that? Because I know how I sometimes get over it is that I say, even though I'm right, it's not worth it to have this conflict. And so I'm going to try to compromise or yield just to get rid of it.
Okay.
Is that good thinking?
That's a solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
As
I
I say,
think all
sometimes
of
you
these
gotta
five
get
things can
divorced.
talk. John is talking about the difficulty of disagreeing with someone and then being trapped in the end. I've heard you say that you get trapped in the end about who's right and it's me. It can convince yourself that it's you and the other person is. So I think all five of these things that we've been talking about are your ways out of that process of what would it be like if I know what it's like now to feel these things. What would it be like to not feel those things? What are the causes? What are my actions that I'm going to do, and how will I prevent this?
Sometimes there's a price to pay.
There is a price to
There
pay.
is a price for everything.
I'm not, and again, you go back to kind of Ruthie's, and so much of Buddhism is about the middle way. So, if I need to have a disagreement, okay, how can I do that in a moderate way where I'm not offensive or offending myself? So how can I be true to myself? How can I see that this other person, if it's with a person, that they, how can I see their viewpoint? How can we come to some of this in the middle? I think so much of it is about finding moderation. Mm-hmm. A lot of people in psychology say, okay, don't push this away. The human nature is push this away. Peace at all costs. I don't think that's the answer always. And so it's somehow moderate. How will I be peaceful in trying to resolve this for myself, first of all, of course, and then maybe there is resolution, with the other person. I think so much of that is about being in the middle of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. And with that, we talked about intention. The first of the three essential intentions in Buddhism. The first one goes by a dry name, renunciation, but what it means is let go. It's releasing, and we cover that in the 5 hindrances. So how do you let go? Part of it is feeling what's on the other side. And the last one is do no harm. So if you can say, okay, who am I harming if I hold on to and do not release this aversion? That I have to be right. What happens if I let go of just being right in this case? Mm-hmm.
Because I think it also affects your relationships, right? Like John's feeling that way, that I get that energy, and it's all
you do.
And it affects me, and it affects our relationship. So letting go, I think, is so important.
It's essential, and that's part of what releasing the 5 hindrances is about.
Mm-hmm.
Let go of
is
this aversion.
is about observing them first and then letting them go.
Yeah, observing,
Yes.
Awareness,
taking notice,
Awareness.
and then
Yeah.
actually visualizing, feeling what it would be like to be
Without
free of that.
Yeah.
Put some emphasis on the liberation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I don't know how.
And if you sit for a while, that third one is also crucial. You know, the third of the 5 steps where you're like, am I really irritated with this person and this circumstance? What does this represent to me? It could not very well be about this person.
That's
it could be
right.
about that type of person. And now
It's
you
not
have this
about the
long
peanut.
history.
Yeah,
And this,
exactly.
And so you have to go to the source of what your problem is before you
That's right.
can start with what can I do about the problem. Because sometimes the source is there. You're like, I think this is just my problem.
Sorry, guys.
I better face myself clearly and deal with my problem that I have rather than face this other person. It's in-depth work. I really like these 5. They're so thorough about what is it like with, what is it like without, what are the causes, what are my solutions, how do I prevent this from taking hold in a new habit form. So it's great stuff. Anybody else?
I'm sorry, guys. I got something in my throat.
I
Okay.
have a question for Mark. Mark, do you do your vision quest here? Like in the jungle? I'm just curious. Like,
I want to. Like,
Yeah.
normally I would go back up to Canada,
yeah.
but now I can't go back up to Canada, so I've been trying to do it here, but I have to find the right spot.
Right.
Okay.
So,
No, it's very interesting. I found it very interesting.
yeah.
Vision quests have native roots.
Definitely.
Yes.
I think if you're having real trouble with an aversion, you can begin to work on it by moving back a step and considering just being indifferent. You know, I'm just not going to let it bother me. I'm just going to be indifferent to this problem. And sometimes that's an effective tool
Sometimes that's
for
easier.
eventually just letting it release. It's like a backward step. You can, is that right?
No, that sounds great. Do you want to do a meditation at the end?
I
here?
do want to do a meditation. If there ever was a day to do it, I'm sorry, I've got something in my throat just tickling the heck out of it. Do we have any water?
I think she went to get water.
Somebody else. I ought to give you some homework and tell you how
Get in
many.
the mic. Homework for you all as well.
Between now and next week and the next one of our hindrances, have to think about it and kind of count the number of times a hindrance arises. Something that irritates you, something that makes you angry, something that makes you want in a not good way because you know it's not going to last and you're obsessed with getting a new car or whatever, which is inappropriate, sensual, sensory, or any of the others, or where you just can't get yourself out of bed or you can't quiet down. Just kind of do a little daily journal for yourself as to how you're doing, and if you can actually stop, recognize them, think about what it would feel like if you didn't feel that way, figure out a strategy. We don't get very far on the path according to the Buddha. He's very clear about this. Unless you can get rid of the hindrances, your path, you will never get very far on your path. This is why he puts the hindrances first. Because you cannot be carrying that on your shoulders. That's a burden you cannot carry to enlightenment. You have to let go of it. And now I don't know if she went to get water or not. Oh, you're going to leave that with me. We're going to do a hello.
Just keep the microphone. We're good.
We ought to get those things that
The
go over.
sixth hindrance is a microphone.
Right, 6.
Here's the hindrance. Oh, today was interesting. So, okay, everybody want to do a med? Do we have time? How's our time?
I think we have about
We
5 minutes.
started late. Okay, well, we'll do it very quickly. Goodwill, the antidote to ill will, the antidote to aversion. Take a few deep breaths. Oops. Forget what we've been focusing on now. Just go into a quiet space. Center yourself. And to yourself, give up all judgments and simply say, may I be well. May no harm come to me. May I live with ease, calm and peaceful. Then bring to mind someone that you're very grateful to and for in your life. Someone you love. And you send to them loving kindness. May you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And then think of a neutral person, someone who waits on you, a neighbor that you don't really know. Someone with, you may not know their name. They're not intimate. But think of them as friend, if you don't know their name, and say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. Now take a deep breath. Bring to mind someone with whom you are in conflict, someone for whom you have some ill will, or someone for whom you feel an aversion. And bringing that person to mind with all good intention to release that ill will. Say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. Notice the liberation in your feeling. The freedom you feel from aversion when you do this. When you have put down, laid down, tossed out aversion or ill will towards this person, even though you may not like them and their policies or their behaviors. But just as a person, you no longer have any malice. And then we put our hands over our hearts and we think of all the people in this world, all the people in this universe, billions of them, and so many that we will never know, but who have had effect on our lives. As Lisa said, the people who have brought us all the things, material things we enjoy, food and clothing and housing and all. And we think of all these nameless, faceless people, and we say, may all beings everywhere, on this plane and all other planes, be well. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings everywhere be freed from suffering. May all beings everywhere be happy. Let this feeling kind of settle into our cells. We release our hands, and to our group we say, go in peace, go making peace, living gently, loving mightily, and bowing to the mistress. Thank you all. We love you.